Greetings and welcome to the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. In each episode, host Kirill Tokarev invites video game industry leaders to talk about the world of game development. No topic is off limits as long as it relates to video game development. New episodes are in the works, so remember to follow us or subscribe and share with someone you know will also enjoy the podcast.
So thank you for joining me today. And before we kind of start, can you do like a little introduction? Tell a little bit about yourself and the company, like your main projects, and that sort of stuff.
Yes, sure. As I was introduced, my name is Pavel Šafář, and I joined Bohemia Interactive in 2016 as a game programmer. I started working on a project, very interesting one, A Take on Mars, a game which was released the same year or the year after that. And since 2018, I'm responsible for delivering our proprietary game engine called Enfusion. This is the technology we announced at the end of the last year, and also the announcement was covered by 80 levels. So your listeners and readers of your website probably know that it's the technology we would like to use in Bohemia's Interactive to power our next generation of games. So this is a brief my background here in Bohemia Interactive. Not sure if you wanted to learn something about the company itself or just my background.
Is one of the companies that has been around for a while. You guys have released a number of very successful games, and your games kind of became platforms for other successful games. And what do you feel is like the biggest competitive advantage that you guys have? Because if you look at the market and you see companies like Wargaming or Riot or Blizzard or like Infinity Ward, Activision Blizzard, and all the Call of Duty games, all of those companies, they have their own technology in terms of visualization of games and building games. So do you feel like the engine, it gives you a competitive edge in the market and allows you to live like for a longer period than competitors?
I think so. I think that it's one of the key pillars we have, which had a tremendous influence on our success in all these more than 20 years. Of course, as in every other company, not every year was full of sunshine and rainbows. There were good years, bad years, but in the long term, I think that having our own technology allow us to do the games we wanted to do and which were appreciated by our players. And I think that it's really important because even this can give or make your game to play and look different. And it's quite important because these days, when every day we have hundreds of new games being published, it's important to just stand out. Game development is highly competitive industry, and we are not competing with games, but also with other multimedia channels and experiences. So that's very, very important. And also working on your own technology will unleash you from the constraints you would live and the constraints which are set by others. And we always had this freedom to do what we wanted to. We also try to limit the number of third-party licenses. So we avoid a situation, for example, when a company is bought by another company, licenses changes, terms and condition changes, and this may have a pretty big impact on your project or on your game. And there is also one indirect advantage of developing your own technology, as that in order to do and make your own technology, you need to understand how it works under the hood. You need to have the very detailed knowledge about inner workings, and this can give you another competitive advantage, because you can, for example, make better, bigger games, more optimized, more complex. You can simulate more things. So yeah, definitely developing own technology is one of the pillars which were important in our success. There are like one or two more, I think, but maybe we will get to them.
So let's talk about the technology in question right now. So when we look at all of your games in general, we think about big open spaces, very large areas. We think about realism. We think about a lot of objects in the frame, hundreds of vehicles, military sims and all that kind of stuff. So when the technology sort of started and as it progressed, what are kind of like the main pillars of it, like the main features that you feel are super important for your company and maybe for the companies who kind of want to start using it?
I think that it's like basically, as you said, we orient on pretty big maps, big terrains, large landscapes. We want this world to be believable. There are millions of entities, thousands, hundreds of thousands of trees, for example. The vegetation is rich, the environment is full of models, and these are just static. And then you have these dynamic object, like you mentioned, these characters, vehicles, other types of like objects you can interact with, like buildings, weapons, tools, and so on. We also like to simulate what we see like in a real life. We want to create really unique game experiences. We want people to learn something new and useful from our games. So we are simulating stuff like day-night cycle. So we can't bake data in because the condition can change from day to night, from sunny weather to cloudy to rain. So we orient on like dynamic simulations. So these are like, from technology perspective, really important features. And also what's quite new, and we started, let's say, with the Daisy, as that we want our games to be a multi-platform as well. So with our engine, we want to support PC players as well as console in PlayStation and Xbox. So this is like another dimension to the engine and the technology.
So if we think about competition in general right now, right? So if you want to build 2D games, you will most likely going to use Unity, right? If you want to use some, to build some very heavy games for PC, you're most likely to go with Unreal, or maybe you want to try CryEngine. But I mean, there's Unigenie and some other technologies, but there's not that many. So when you think about Enfusion and kind of like it as a choice of technology for a new partner, so why do you think they would choose it? Like, what are the things apart from large areas and that kind of stuff? Why do you think it's useful for the customer in general?
Yeah. I think that at the beginning, it's important to say that we do not want to compete on the game engine market with Enfusion, with, let's say, the engine you mentioned, with Unigine, Unreal, Unity, and more. Our main goal with Enfusion is to unleash the creativity of our players so they can create mods, add-ons, and total conversions. It's our way of like simply from simply delivering game to providing an entire platform. We want to offer our content creators a full package of powerful tools to work with models, textures, sounds, scripts, animations, particle worlds, game systems, and more. So they will be able to use the pretty much the same tools as we use here internally in Bohemia Interactive to create games. So by that, we are like closing the gap between us and the community like never before. So we are making Enfusion primarily for content creators of our games. And while Enfusion may not be the game engine of your choice when you would like be creating a completely new game from scratch, it's the engine which gives you all the tools and power you need to create and tailor like the game you like in a way you like it, which will allow you to be curious and creative. And as you mentioned at the beginning, creating games is it's hard, and even with all the documentation, videos, tutorials available online, it's still not like accessible to everybody. And it's this exact lack of accessibility that we are like trying to improve with Enfusion. We want to create, or we want the creation of the game content to be far more accessible, much more than it was for Arma series, for example. Imagine that you're like running a game, you open up the editor, you click around a bit, play some entities, write some scripts, and then you have your own scenario. You can then easily, pack it, publish it on workshop, share with friends, rent or start up, boot up the dedicated server, play the scenario, and this is kind of experience we would like to like deliver to our players and content creators with the Enfusion. So we are, let's say, in a little bit different situation than other, let's say, commercial engine, and this is the area we are like trying to do the best way we can.
Pavel, so I kind of have to ask this. So when we think about Arma, so we think about DayZ as well. And then when we think about DayZ, we also think about PUBG. And all of those games, they kind of started as mods, right? And they are kind of no longer your property, and you're not basically making any money out of all of that success. So my question is, how is the licensing structured with this engine? Like, do you feel like that you're gonna get some royalties from the possible commercial use of the engine, like if they're building another PUBG or something, and they're building it for another product? Is it licensed, or how does that work?
Yeah. Currently, we do not like think or consider licensing engines for like outside game studios which would be developing a commercial games on the top of the Enfusion. And I think that we are not even ready for it, because a game studio, a game team would have a completely different requirements or priorities than a content creators of our games. So as I said, we are aiming with the Enfusion, we are aiming on content creators for our games. Of course, they can create a total conversion, but they wouldn't be able like to monetize it at the moment. So I expect that the terms and conditions of using our engine and our content would remain the same as it is right now with Arma modding or DayZ. So I wouldn't expect much changes there. Of course, maybe what might be an interesting question, and I don't have all the answers, as if like content creators would be able to monetize their content inside our platform. And everything, or all I can say is yes, this is something we are like thinking about, because if someone invests a lot of time and a lot of effort, and people are like doing it, they are spending hundreds of hours making new content, new maps, new assets, and I think that it's fair that they would be like able to monetize it. On the other hand, there is a big task on us that we will like create a mechanisms which will protect like this intellectual property.
Pavel, can you talk a little bit about your community of creators? So we all know that there is a very large kind of number of people who are trying to build new maps, and they're trying to build even total conversions, which is incredibly difficult, and it requires a lot of time in particular. And there are like small teams of modders who are working on these things. So why do you think like Arma and all of your products are so appealing for modders? Like what makes a modder kind of interested in tinkering with the product?
Yeah, I think that in Arma's case, it's this accessibility. I know in current optics, if you would want to create a mod for Arma, it's like complete nightmare in 2022. But like 10 years ago, it was far more accessible than like running up a Unity and starting from scratch. So people could achieve much more just by modding and using Arma's editor to create their own content rather than they would be able to when they download the game engine, and they will need to like start to creating assets and scripts. So I think it's this accessibility, and this is the thing we would like to improve even more. So we removed a lot of legacy tools. We polished our workflows. We simplified them. So, for example, one of the KPIs I'm always interested in is how much faster is to create a new terrain, for example, and this speed up is in order of magnitude. So it's much easier, much intuitive. The tools are better, faster, more stable. So yeah, definitely something we have in mind when developing Enfusion and the tools.
So when you think about these kind of tools for the creation of worlds, you kind of step into this metaverse territory where, this vision of the whatever, like the online world where people are building their own stuff and they're living there and so on. Do you guys have any ambition, or did you think about it at least, trying to go into that area and turning Enfusion engine into some kind of a tool for the creation of bigger worlds and interaction of a lot of players?
Yeah, a metaverse is something which is like a lot discussed in recent months, mainly after like Facebook and Meta announced their intention to invest into this area heavily. Maybe not everybody knows that Bohemia Interactive or Arma has its own metaverse. It's called Armaverse. But this is something we are, I think, doing pretty intuitively. And a lot of developers are doing it without even know that they are like contributing or building something which might be or remind something like a metaverse. Because it's like nothing new. For example, let's take an example of a character in a Daisy. This is your virtual identity. You can take from one server to another, from one PlayStation to another session. So you can transfer your identity. Also, games quite naturally support, and we want to support with Enfusion, a crossplay. So it doesn't matter what device you play the game on. You start at home on PC, continue at school on laptop, and then continue on a mobile while traveling home by train. Or, for example, our other game, Wildlands, it has a lot of possibilities in like building communities and these virtual communities with virtual social contacts. So I'm looking forward that one day we will be like having this conversation inside Wildlands rather than like Google Meet, like we are using at the moment. So I wanted to say that we are like evolving into this area quite naturally. But if the question is this huge, big metaverse, like it was announced, I think that it will need a lot of years and a lot of work, not by only Facebook, let's say, or Meta, but other companies will have to be involved as well. And I think that also not many big companies believe that there will be just one metaverse, but maybe there will be more. So it's quite like open topic at the moment, but I think it's clear that there will need to be some common ground. So it's widely adopted. It ever will.
Sorry. If you're speaking about creators and you're speaking about people who are building metaverse and so on, you kind of touched the topic of the way that they monetize their stuff. So you briefly touched on this, but right now we have so many options for people to start monetizing. So NFTs on all the blockchain things, all the different marketplaces that are being created. So have you been looking into that area at all? Like, what's your general, attitude towards? Do you think it's too early to talk about that, or is it maybe not it's a very gray area right now? Like, what's your attitude towards all those new ways to monetize stuff in games in particular?
Yeah. Well, my personal opinion, I don't like it. I don't like NFTs. I don't like the blockchains. I don't like this kind of way of monetizing stuff. So I don't even think about these possibilities in the engine at the moment. So yeah, that's just like my opinion on it. I don't have anything much to say about it at the moment.
That's fine. So let's talk a little bit about the way how you are going to move Enfusion into the future. So as far as I understood from this conversation, you want to start just engaging with the community more, getting more mods, modifications, or changes, and trying to get more people kind of involved into the game, and maybe increasing your engagement levels and all that stuff. So, but how is this connected with the multi-platform efforts that you're doing right now? So being able to port your game on, Xbox and PlayStation, I don't know about Switch, but all the platforms that are around mobile and so on, this is incredibly valuable for people. But how do the mods work there? Do they work at all? Are they limited just to the PC for now?
We are definitely working on a possibility that our mods will work on all the supported platforms, as I said, PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Of course, these closed platforms like Xbox and PlayStation have special rules and special limits you need to follow, but there are at the moment like technical challenges we are working on and solving one by one. We also had to create our own workshop because, for example, on Arma we use Steam Workshop for mod creators to upload their content. We integrated the game and launcher with it, but it's not possible to use it, for example, on a console. So we developed our own solution. So yeah, we are working very hard to allow people to play on servers with mods, even on consoles. Of course, creating a mod is a different topic, and this will be done by our editor workbench, which is part of the Enfusion, and this is PC Windows only at the moment. So creating mods only on Windows, consuming playing mods on multiple platforms.
It's funny that you say this because like when you look at all the modern games, especially those who want like a longer life cycle, they are heavily adding kind of mod tools inside the game itself, like turning it into gameplay. If you look like at the, I think it's Fallout 76. It's
Yeah.
all about building your base, and they pick up assets, you put the assets at the right places and so on. So it's something that people really want to do on consoles, it seems right now. But just because of the of the CPU and the power and all the other restrictions, they just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Consoles are very powerful, and I admit that some type of content can be created on console as well, but I can't like imagine like
Yeah.
configuring completely new asset. For example, if you imagine, okay, I would like to have a new vehicle in a game, and this vehicle will be like interactive. It will have its own like simulation of the engine or the wheels. It will have different sound, different effects. This is very hard to achieve in game. So for this kind of stuff, you would need to use our workbench. But for example, if you would like to create just a small scenario, some small
Mm.
experience for like players, set up a world, place some entities around, and then just share it and play with your friends. Yes, definitely, this can be and is possible to do it in consoles on consoles as well.
So tell us a little bit about how this. So what do creators expect to get with Enfusion? Like, you get the technology itself. Do they get any assets as well that they can play around with?
Yeah. Uh, it's very good and valid questions. We are not at the moment. We are not going to release the Enfusion and the tools by their own. We will release it as a part of a gameplay showcase. So the Enfusion will go with a little game and including its data. You can like imagine it pretty much like Arma 3. You got this game, but you can run a lot of tools, a lot of editors were like included. So this is pretty much the same approach we are taking.
So you will get the game, and I guess you can get the mechanics and the assets and the setups from there, and then kind of tweak them or change them or maybe reuse them in some cases. So it saves a lot of time, so you don't have to start
Mhm.
from, zero every time you want to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it's like maybe important to know that everything, like 99% of stuff you will need or want to do is possible to do directly in the editor. There are
Mm.
dedicated screens, dedicated editors for a lot of actions. So no more text editors, no more like editing configuration manually, which is like error prone and
Mm.
really not the way we wanted to approach it. So I think that this will be a really big added value for the Arma community, that they will have like comfortable tools they can work with.
Pavel, so I have another question. So when kind of modders are creating all those experiences and building those games, how do you actually go finding them and launching them? Do you guys have your own like web space where you can choose these things? Like, is there a launcher like Steam, or like how is the discovery process going and the launch process going? Do you need to just work with Arma? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. Uh, I well, as I said, we are not like going to release and market Enfusion by its own. So it will be mainly marketing effort of our game titles to like advertise and to attract players and our communities, and then they will have this option to create a game content in the Enfusion. So this
For a particular game, right? So if it's Vigor, then it's content for Vigor. If it's, Arma, then it's
yeah
content for Arma. I got
yeah
it.
Yeah.
And do you have any plans to kind of combine them into some kind of like one, or not for now?
Yeah, we definitely want and plan to make multiple game titles on the top of Enfusion, and we definitely do not want to have like different versions of Enfusion for different games. So we will make the best we can to keep it simple. So you would be able to open the, if I take your example, open the assets from bigger, if it would be developed on Enfusion, and the Enfusion which is distributed with Arma, for example. And this is actually our like automated test case which runs here every night, that we have completely different game which is, or asset from different game opened with the Enfusion which powers like different one. So we are making sure that editor is always working no matter what the game is or if it's broken or not. So this needs to work.
All right. So last questions, how do people start? So if I want to try out your engine, what do I do? Do I need to buy a game? Do I need to just download the software? And how do I start?
Yeah. Well, right now, your option is like pretty limited. You would need to join our team, like the Enfusion or game team, to work with the technology. But otherwise, you just need to wait a little while. So we deliver this gameplay showcase, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it will be just running one executable. The tool would boot up, and there will be everything ready for you. We are also working on the documentation, so a lot of stuff will be documented. Also, we are preparing some examples, samples, so people are not lost. We know that a lot of people invested a lot of time doing content for Arma, and this changing like a lot of like everything changes. For Daisy modders, it's a little bit different because Daisy is using some parts of Enfusion, for example, a scripting language. So for them, it will be much easier to create a new content for Enfusion, but we want to make it like really the learning curve we want to have like very steep. So we are preparing these materials so people can like start and be productive very, very soon. We also pay attention to and industry standards. We will not, or you will not be forced to use any licensed software. So all the source formats, it's possible to use any free, any vendor, any free tool you like, and yeah.
Great. I mean, it's a like a free tool like Blender plus a free engine like Enfusion. It seems like a great combination for any modder out there, so they don't have to buy any other software to run it.
Yeah.
All right, Pavel. Well, I thank you so much for the time. It was really fun talking to you, and I hope that we will see some new releases, some new news from you this year. And then we can all try Enfusion for ourselves and start building something there. So thank you so much.
Thank you too, and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. Check out upcoming episodes on the 80 Level website at 80.lv. Join our career site at 80.lv/RFP. And share our podcast with friends and on your social networks.